Thoughts on the topic of fair, quote unquote. Fair is just another four-letter word in economics. Fairness is a normative principle or a normative statement. It is a principle used to suggest outcomes or actions that ought to or should occur. To be fair is good. To be unfair is bad. To be fair is right. To be unfair is wrong. To be fair is just. To be unfair is unjust. To be fair is ethical. To be unfair is unethical. Actions and outcomes ought to be fair. They ought to be just. They ought to be ethical. Do you notice the term ought to be or should be? That is a normative statement. Unfair actions and outcomes should be opposed, they should be avoided, and they should be reversed or eliminated. These are all what we call normative statements based upon opinion. But what we're concerned about in economics is what's called positive statements, which are statements that are true or can be testable. In practice, fair trade means protectionism, yet every trade barrier undermines the productivity of capital and labor throughout the economy. A Treasury Department study estimated that trade barriers such as quotas or tariffs routinely cost American consumers 8 to 10 times as much as they benefit American producers. Fair trade then isn't truly fair. Imagine this situation. Anna, Ben, and Carla baked a cake together and now are discussing how to split it. Anna says it is only fair to split the cake into equal amounts so that everyone gets exactly 1/3. Ben, though, says he should get more than the other two because he did most of the baking. Carla, however, says she needs, quote unquote, more cake than the others because she has a little brother with whom she must share her piece of cake, while the other two have no siblings. All three get into an argument about what is fair, quote unquote, each one with their own understanding. Life is not fair is an unfair statement. Life is neither fair, quote unquote, nor unfair. Life has no opinion of fairness, quote unquote. Life just is. Instead, it is our interpretation and judgment of these events that we identify as fair, quote unquote, or unfair, quote unquote. Just as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so too is fairness. If one person was born quite poor and has worked very hard throughout his or her life and gets paid more than another person who was born wealthy, privileged, and protected and has not worked hard, is that unfair, quote unquote? Whenever you hear the word fair, quote unquote, say to yourself, fair, quote unquote, because once you say this fair, quote unquote, to whom, then you know that fair, quote unquote, is a normative statement and not a positive statement that we look for in economics.